Hi guys, keeping you updated with news from around the world that you're not going to find on the mainstream media channels like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, BBC News, Sky News, and the like. Um, you find the real news in the newspapers. At least you find more news in the newspapers. You get pages and pages of news, whereas on the TV you get five stories repeated throughout the whole day. So you know, here we go. Israel preparing for military assault. This is coming from the Lebanese foreign minister. The Lebanese foreign minister, Gibran Bassil, I believe it's pronounced, claimed on Thursday that Israel's actions near the border of his country is in preparation for a military assault on Lebanon. The IDF launched Operation Northern Shield overnight on Monday in order to dismantle terrorist tunnels dug by Hezbollah from Lebanon into Israeli territory. Within hours of the initial announcement, the IDF reported that it had uncovered a terror tunnel originating in the southern Lebanese village of Kafakala and leading into Israeli territory. The tunnel was dug from a cement factory in the southern Kafakela area and which has been converted to a military site by Hezbollah terrorists. So keep an eye on that. Hezbollah responding by mobilizing missiles from Syria to southern Lebanon in a bid to counter a potential Israeli strike. The Shiite terrorist group is reportedly concerned that the Israeli operation to neutralize its cross-border terror tunnels is the opening move to a wider military campaign, the report said. Syrian opposition officials said that Hezbollah was moving OTR T-21 Tochka missile batteries to southern Lebanon. The OTR-21 is a Soviet-made tactical ballistic missile system ranging from 15 kilometers and 185 kilometers, that's 9 miles to 115 miles. Other reports said that Hezbollah was also deploying short-range Iranian-made projectiles in southern Lebanon, adding that the group has blocked dozens of roads in the area to allow the convoy smooth transport. And it seems Hezbollah and Lebanon's fears may be well-founded. Israel is prepared to take action in Lebanon against Hezbollah cross-border tunnels if necessary, an Israeli cabinet minister said on Friday. Israel's minister said earlier this week that it had found a number of passages dug across the Israeli-Lebanon border to be used in carrying out attacks inside Israel. The Israeli military sent mechanical diggers, troops, and anti-tunneling equipment to the border to shut them down. The Israeli military, which launched the operation on Tuesday, really it was Monday night, has said its activity would, for now, stop on the Israeli side of the border. But Israeli news media on Thursday quoted an unnamed senior official saying that Israel would extend its activity into Lebanon, and on Friday, Israeli Intelligence Minister Israel Katz reiterated that message. If we think that in order to thwart the tunnels that one needs to operate on the other side, then we will operate on the other side of the border, Katz told Radio Tel Aviv 102 FM. So it's clear that there's a potential for a war kicking off with Lebanon if Israel decides to go into Lebanon and shut down some of those tunnels. You've got Hezbollah there with their missiles and rockets ready to respond, and obviously, Iran could also get involved, and that could be, quick and short, or it could escalate to something more. So keep an eye on how that unfolds. In a warning to Russia over Ukraine, US flies open skies aircraft over Ukrainian territory. The US has conducted an open skies flight over Ukraine's territory in what the Pentagon is calling an explicit message to Russia that America remains committed to Ukraine's defense. Today, the United States and allies conducted an extraordinary flight under the Open Skies Treaty. The timing of this flight is intended to reaffirm US commitment to Ukraine and other partner nations. A release from the Pentagon announced Thursday the United States is resolute in our support for the security of European nations. The term extraordinary is a technical term under the Open Skies Treaty. Each nation is given a specific allocation of flights it might request. However, an extraordinary request from a country for the US to overfly its territory on short notice falls outside that allocation of flights. Now, Russia's unprovoked attack on Ukraine Navy and vessels in the Black Sea near the Kerch Strait is a dangerous escalation in a pattern of increasingly provocative and threatening activity, the release added. The United States seeks a better relationship with Russia, but this cannot happen while its unlawful and destabilizing actions continue in Ukraine and elsewhere. The timing of the flight is notable for several reasons. First, it comes just hours after media reports said the US Navy is preparing a freedom of navigation exercise through the Black Sea near the Sea of Azores, a flashpoint between Ukraine and Russia since late November, when the latest crisis between those two countries kicked off. Now, in response to the freedom of navigation that the United States Navy is preparing for the Sea of Azores, Russia responded by saying Russian submarines may surface in Gulf of Mexico after US warships show of force. So this is coming from Igor Korotenko, editor-in-chief of the National Defense magazine. So he's saying the Russian submarine fleet is lurking in waters under the ocean basin surrounded by the North American continent. This is an analyst who's saying this. He raised the prospect of Russian submarines surfacing suddenly off the US coast in response to the deployment of the USS Campbell in the Peter the Great Bay on Wednesday. The US destroyer sailed near Peter the Great Bay to challenge Russia's excessive maritime claims in a freedom of navigation operation. Equipped with Tomahawk missiles, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer sailed in the vicinity of Russian territory in the Sea of Japan to uphold the rights, freedoms, and lawful uses of the sea, the US Navy said. Our submarines, too, might have surfaced suddenly someplace in the Gulf of Mexico to shock America, he told Russian news agency TASS. We have the corresponding forces of our submarine fleet there. We do not do that for the simple reason our purpose is not to show off in such a silly way, but to cope with the assigned tasks. Russia has conducted a self-sufficient policy of its own, and it keeps conducting it. We defend our interests all along, and we continue to do so. So the thought of Russian submarines being off the United States coast, East Coast, Gulf, West Coast, wherever that may be, is an idea that we got from the iPet Goat 2 video, an animation that was released in 2012 and appears to depict events for the future. And one of those events is Russian submarines appearing out of the water around the United States coast. It's not just from that, but there's been people on YouTube posted videos, prophetic dreams and whatnot. So, you know, to have more kind of solid real world confirmation, not from someone who's interpreting something, but someone who is in the military and possibly has inside sources, it kind of brings your attention to it a little bit more. So I think that story there is quite important, and something that should be paid attention to, possibly reinforcing the theory that we've already spoken about over the last 2 years. OPEC, this is in relation to oil, they've agreed to cut down their production of oil. So that's important because they've exempted Iran from that cut in production, which obviously means that the prices of oil is going to go up because there's less of it available. Obviously, there's a surplus of oil around the world, so it's not as if they're going to run out, but the markets react to future events, and if oil is slowing down in terms of it being taken out of the ground, then the prices of it is going to go up. And Iran would benefit the most because they are exempt from the cut, so they'd still be able to produce oil at their full rate, which is obviously going against the United States in terms of the sanctions. And as I've said before, if the United States is unable to sanction Iran and stop their oil that way, they wanted to bring their oil down to 0% using sanctions, but if they're not able to do that, then they're going to have to use military force in terms of using the US Navy to block Iran's oil exports, which means that Iran will block the Strait of Hormuz, which will obviously, you know, we've talked about that situation a lot. We know how that goes, so we keep an eye out for that. More steps are being taken towards that eventuality, and you know, at some point it's all gonna come crashing down. And along with Russia saying that they've, you know, got submarines lurking around the United States coast, that goes along with the stories that they've, you know, said that they've sent submarines to the United States coast and back undetected. No idea if that's true, but obviously that wouldn't be reported by the mainstream media if it was true, national security and all that. Iran is saying that they plan to deploy a new generation of warships to Venezuela, and that could cause some issues. Obviously, Venezuela is not that far from the United States, and having Iranian ships in the area would upset the regional order, according to Rosico San Miguel, president of Control, whatever that word is, a non-government organization that monitors Venezuela's armed forces. So he's saying this is going to be a bother to all 14 countries that have borders with Venezuela and will generate an undesirable situation. Amid the growing tensions between Washington and Tehran, the Iranian government last week launched a destroyer built in the Islamic country with stealth properties that allow it to avoid radar detection. In one of its official comments on the new Safan destroyer, which can carry helicopters, fire torpedoes, and shoot down planes, Iran said it could deploy 2 or 3 of them to Venezuela. So keep an eye on that. That situation to me is a more unlikely situation, but you know, with all the rhetoric that's going around, got to keep our eyes on what's going on. They say things, they don't do things, they do things but don't say things, so, you know, just got to keep our eyes open. And this one's interesting for me. You know, it's about a chemical attack on the London Underground, and it was published today, the 9th of December, 12:13 a.m. UK time. It's one of the scenarios I've talked about, again, over the last, not so long as 2 years, but over the last couple of months. A possible chemical or biological explosion of some kind on the underground, maybe a series of them. Not sure how many people affected, but this one is saying it claimed jihadis could launch a chlorine bomb on the London Underground after chatter between ISIS senior figures was intercepted. According to the Mail on Sunday, the terror group is said to have been inspired by the poisoning of ex-Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in March this year. Prior to the Salisbury Novichok attack, the government's Joint Terrorism Analysis Center put the risk of a chemical weapons attack at 25%, but sources told the paper this is now surged to 50%. It's also claimed a simulation of the aftermath of a chlorine bomb attack has been carried out by emergency services over fears of a detonation on the London Underground. When a chlorine bomb is detonated, low-level exposure results in burning sensations to the eyes, nose, and throat, as well as dizziness, nausea, and vomiting, while higher levels can cause fatal lung damage. The threat is reportedly so severe that terror chiefs secretly met with emergency service bosses 2 weeks ago to wargame their response to such an atrocity. It's reported the recent simulation involved commuters being killed as chlorine gas swept through trains and platforms, with many more dying as passengers tried to escape. It was estimated that up to 100 lives could be lost in such an attack, with hundreds more injured, according to the report. I think that level is a little bit low, but we'll carry on. A security source involved in the exercise told the Mail on Sunday the chlorine vapor would be very localized and would last a few minutes before it evaporated. Now, my thoughts on that is, if it's a small bomb, then, you know, obviously what they're saying is it wouldn't be that major. Obviously 100 lives is still important, but it wouldn't be thousands. My thoughts are, if something like that was to take place, it would be a much bigger bomb, or it would be a series of them affecting a lot more people. So again, just something talking about from the iPad Go 2 video in terms of an interpretation, and you know, you get these real world reports that kind of again reinforce your interpretation of an event. Maybe not the date, but the event certainly is out there as something that they're worried about, something that I'm concerned about, something that I think is planned to happen sometime in the future, as part of all the other events that we've talked about. So you guys, that's the updates I've got for you today. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.